Nestled into the protected straits of the Salish Sea and stretching into the rolling hills of Lake Okanagan lies a university where ideas become potential, a place to explore and seek, a haven that nurtures its brightest lights and safely guides each spark towards great expectations. Build your future at UBC Engineering.
Hi, and welcome to the Ask Me Anything Admission to UBC Engineering session today. It's so great to see all of you here. We'll go through a little bit about our programs, some of the basics really quickly, and then we are going to leave a ton of time here today to answer all of the questions that you might still have about UBC Engineering. My name is Erin. I am the Student Recruitment Officer at UBC, and my pronouns are she, her, and I work at the Vancouver campus, though I also represent the Okanagan campus. Now, having said that, both of our UBC campuses are built on lands that have been home to Indigenous people for thousands of years, and I'd like to acknowledge the land that UBC has built its Vancouver campus on, which we work, learn, connect, and innovate, is the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Musqueam peoples. Our Okanagan campus is situated on the territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation and their peoples. And I'd also like to recognize that you're joining us today from many places near and far and acknowledge their traditional owners and caretakers of your lands. So a few notes to go over before we dive into today's session. There are a few different functions in this webinar that you can utilize. So if you are experiencing any audio video issues, you should be able to use that mic button in the bottom of your screen to make sure that you're using the right headphones or that it's accessing the right speakers that you're planning on. If you're having any issues, you can always leave and come back into the webinar, and you shouldn't have any issues doing that. So that sometimes helps reset as well. This session is really designed for you, and especially to get all of your questions answered today. So please feel free to use the Q&A function. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a question mark and kind of a chat bubble, and you can use that Q&A to ask any questions that you have today throughout the session. We are going to leave lots of time at the end, but we are going to try and get to all of those questions as well. All right. The next thing I want to mention is that we have lots of links available in the resources tab. So on the bottom of your screen, again, there is a resources tab that has a bunch of pages stacked on top of each other. And in that, you can access that, which has a whole bunch of links. So you can access any of those links now. You could open all of them if you want, so that they're available to you after the session. And then you can find out lots of more information. A lot of the questions we're answering today are probably going to be addressed in those links as well. So it's just one place to kind of find some more information from our website. I know we have a few different websites that we use that can be difficult to find. Closed captioning is also enabled, so you can click on the closed caption button if you'd like to do that. And finally, if you are not able to stay with us for the entire session, we will be recording this, and you will be able to see a recording of this in the next few days. We'll email that out to you as well. All right, so I do want to address a couple of staff that I have with me here today. They're going to introduce themselves at the end, but I have Sasha and Shige here today. Sasha is part of the student recruitment advising team at UBC, and Shige is part of the international student recruitment team as well. So lots of expertise here in the room to answer all of your questions today. So UBC Engineering is one of Canada's best engineering schools, which is consistently reflected in the World University Rankings. If you choose to join us at UBC, you'll be joining a university which is globally recognized for its excellence in teaching and research, as well as its global impact. The World University Rankings, such as Times Higher Education, ranks UBC as number 2 in Canada, overall within the top 50 universities in the world, or that means the top 5% of all universities in the world. And we're also number 1 in Canada for International Outlook. When we look at UBC Engineering specifically for the last few years, Maclean's magazine has ranked UBC Engineering as the #2 engineering program in Canada based on program and research reputation. And we're also home to the largest co-op program in Western Canada, where we have fantastic employer partnerships to set you up for success. Overall, if you join us at UBC, you'll be joining one of the top ranked universities in the world. Now, there are 2 ways to get a degree in engineering from UBC, and you can study at our Okanagan campus in Kelowna or the Vancouver campus on the west side of Vancouver. The campuses themselves are about a 4.5-hour drive apart or about an hour flight apart, so you would be planning to start at one campus and finish at that same campus. While the feel of each campus is going to be a little bit different, both campuses' engineering programs are equally prestigious and accredited, where you'll be learning or working with professors who are leaders in their field. No matter which campus you start at, you'll also start in the foundational first year, where you'll be able to build the foundation of your degree in courses like engineering design, chemistry, physics, math, and English before continuing into your program and completing your degree at that campus. As I mentioned, no matter which campus you start at, you'll start in that foundational first year. Now, in that foundational first year, you'll be introduced to the design cycle right away, where you'll get to start to learn and think like an engineer. Throughout your first year, you'll also have the opportunity to learn more about each of the engineering programs offered at your campus, and that is by attending events, chatting with senior engineering students, speaking to professors, and taking advantage of the presentations that happen right in your first year classes. This will give you a solid understanding of the options available to you and a much better sense of which program is going to be best aligned for your interests and aptitude. At both campuses, students select their program of study at the end of their first year through a process called second year placement. The UBC Okanagan campus has 5 programs, 4 of which are currently accepting new students. That includes civil, computer, electrical, and mechanical engineering. Placement into these 4 programs is guaranteed at the Okanagan campus. So once you've completed your first year, you get to choose which 4 programs you want to go into, and you will continue that for the rest of your degree. At the Vancouver campus, it's a little bit different. We do have 14 different engineering disciplines available. But placement into these is competitive. So in your first year, you'll learn a little bit more, but it will be based on your first year GPA for placement into these programs. And you'll also be writing a personal statement to these programs to consider you as well. Now, again, that whole process is going to be walked through. You are still guaranteed a spot in a program in second year, and you'll be able to rank your choice of programs. Now, some of the programs as well, like engineering physics, also require an interview. So that'll be something that we'll teach you about in first year. But for the most part, you're going to be ranking from these programs. Now, select top applicants to UBC Engineering may also be offered guaranteed placement. So if you are a top applicant, you may not have to worry so much about that competitive placement, and you will be notified about that either around the time of admission or just a little bit into the spring as well. And you'll be notified by email about that. Now, the other thing I do want to mention is for students interested in biomedical engineering, there's also what we call the pre-biomedical timetable. This allows you to customize your courses in first year just a little bit further so that you're taking some biomedical specific courses so that you can really transition into the second year of that program a little bit more smoothly. Any student in the first year can still choose biomedical engineering, but if you are pretty sure that you want to go into that, then the pre-biomedical timetable is a great option too. Speaking of kind of customizing your degree further, there's lots of ways to do that at UBC Engineering. So from the very start, you'll be exposed to hands-on design projects where you work in teams with other first-year students. You'll continue to have courses year after year that build on those project-based team learning experiences, culminating in your final year with your capstone design project, where you and your peers work with industry partners to solve real-life problems. Some capstone projects have actually created startup companies out of them or have allowed students to even secure a job directly upon graduation. A few kind of fun examples: mechanical engineering students created a chocolate 3D printer using off-the-shelf 3D printer parts, so that's kind of fun. A little bit of a bigger scale system, some civil engineering students worked to design a machine shop for BC ferries, so contributing to our BC infrastructure. And a group of environmental engineering students designed a year-round treatment plant to treat the groundwater that was contaminated by the giant mine in Yellowknife. So some pretty big projects that our students as undergraduates get to work on. If you're interested in research, we also have a ton of ways to get involved in research, whether that's paid research experience or being part of a club like the undergrad research organization that pairs students with areas of research that they're interested in. Later on in your degree, you can also customize your studies by choosing to pursue a minor, which is a secondary area of study. This is not a requirement, but it will allow you to have a secondary focus as part of your degree. It will also likely extend your degree by a little bit. At the Vancouver campus, you can choose a minor in commerce, entrepreneurship, science, honors, math, and arts. At the Okanagan campus, we have management, computer science, and arts. We also have a dual degree at each campus. So in Vancouver, we have the Bachelor of Applied Science and Bachelor of Arts dual degree. And at the Okanagan, we have the Bachelor of Applied Science and Masters of Management degree. So again, we'll extend your degree by a little bit, but it's a way if you want that kind of secondary area of focus on top of your engineering degree, that's something that you could choose to do. You might also consider going abroad to work, research, or study in your third year of school. And then we have an amazing co-op program. So co-op is a fantastic way to get hands-on experience while getting paid very well. And it'll add a year to your degree, but you'll receive at least 16 months of paid work experience. Earlier in October, we hosted a session all about co-op. So if you go into that resources tab, we do have a link to all of our recordings. And you can hear from two current students that spoke about their co-op experience, as well as some more specific details about co-op. Now, one way that our students can find their passion is by joining a design team, where they can design and create projects outside of the classroom. There are so many design teams and clubs and affiliated chapters at both campuses to expand your network and find your community. And we also have the engineering undergraduate societies in both the Vancouver and Okanagan campus, as well as our EIDEAS club. So that's Engineering Inclusivity, Diversity, Equity, Advancement for Students clubs. And they are for members of 2S LGBTQIA plus community, women, Black, Indigenous, and Chinese students, anyone who may feel like they are a minority or looking for that further community within engineering. We have some really supportive and amazing clubs to be a part of. Now, at the Okanagan campus, there are 15 different engineering design teams, clubs, and associations that you can get a part of. The UBC Aerospace team recently was the first non-commercial team to fly a clustered hybrid rocket from Canadian soil using different impulse engines. So kind of a unique one there, but very cool. And they're now expanding to include a space design team as well. In Vancouver, there are over 30 design teams that do things like build Formula One style racing cars, so both electric and non-electric, soccer playing robots. One team designed a net zero sustainable building, and some build rockets, drones, all sorts of different things. So some really cool options to be a part of. To get that engineering hands-on experience outside of the classroom and to meet some other students in all year levels, work with professors, and we have a lot of employers that also specifically seek out students who have been part of design teams at UBC. So great opportunities to be a part of. A few quick admission basics that I do want to go through. So application deadlines, when do you need to apply by? First of all, I would say apply as soon as you're able to. It's always best to apply as soon as possible so that you can get everything done, get it out of the way, not have to worry about those deadlines. But if you are currently in grade 12 or your final year of high school and you want to be considered for any of the awards listed on the screen, you will need to submit that application by December 1st. The final deadline to apply is January 15th. So if you are a transfer student or not concerned with those scholarships listed on the screen, then you can apply by January 15th. When we look at what is required for admissions, there are different admission requirements depending on where you are studying, what academic history you have, all sorts of different things. So if you go to our website, again, the admission requirements link is available in that resources tab. You can see what requirements are specific to you. Typically, the academic requirements are going to include English, chemistry, physics, and pre-calculus at the grade 12 level, as well as chemistry and physics at the grade 11 level. So, or your senior year of high school, essentially, whatever those equivalents are for your schooling system. But you can check online for both the Vancouver and Okanagan campus to make sure that you have those requirements. The requirements are kind of like a checklist. So we just want to make sure that you've taken those specific courses, but how we're actually going to look at your application for admission is to assess that overall academic average, which is going to be looking at all of your grade 11 and grade 12 academic level courses. We're going to then also focus on your core academic average, which is any of those academic courses related to English or language arts, math and computation, and sciences. And then we also have a personal profile. And so that is where you get to tell us a little bit more about yourself, to be really introspective and reflective on some of the activities that you've been a part of outside of your classroom experience, and to tell us just so that we have a better picture of who you are as a student. So the application is quite straightforward, actually. Even though we have all of those components of making sure you have those requirements, understanding how we assess you for admission, but to actually apply is pretty easy. So you can go to any of our whileu.ubc.ca pages, click on that Apply to UBC button. That'll redirect you to Education Planner BC, where you can start your application. The beginning of the application is just going to ask you for details about your academic history, what schools have you gone to, your name, your address, all of that sort of fun stuff. And then you'll be able to get to the UBC part of the application. In there, you'll be able to indicate your program choices, which you can select 2 of on your application. You can see an example here would be a student applying to Applied Science at the Vancouver campus as their first choice, and the Applied Science program at the Okanagan as their second choice. Be sure to put whatever you're most interested in as your first choice, because we're always going to assess your first choice first before moving on to your second choice if you're not admissible to that first choice. Now, once you apply, be sure to keep an eye on your applicant service center and your email. UBC will be getting in contact with you for anything that you need to provide to us, as well as like into the summer when we do course registration and things like that. There will be important emails going out. So make sure that you keep an eye on both your applicant service center and your emails to make sure that you are submitting any of the documents required, uploading your own grades, sending those in if needed, and doing it by the deadline requested. If a student does need to meet the English language competency, that will need to be submitted by February 15th. Most students are going to meet this if you've been studying in Canada or in an English-speaking country already, but for some students that have moved around or live somewhere else, then that may be an additional piece that you need to submit for us. I do want to talk a little bit about what your degree is going to cost you. And so because it's going to be a little bit different for every student, I do want to mention the first year cost calculator that we have, where you can actually put in all of your information so that it'll tell you what fees you can expect to have. Now, whatever those first year fees are, especially regarding tuition and student fees, you can expect you're going to pay the same amount for years 2, 3, and 4, the rest of your degree, essentially. So that is the annual amount that it'll give you, and you can expect it'll be roughly the same for your upper years. It's typically based on credit. The credit that you take per year is going to be very similar to first year. In some programs, it may be a little bit more, so it might cost a little bit more year to year, just depending on the number of courses you're taking, really. But we do have some great financial support resources available as well online, so be sure to check out these links. Again, you can also go to the financial planning link in the resources tab to access that. UBC also provides a ton of scholarships to our students. So there are lots of different scholarships available to when you apply to UBC. Many of these will be for automatic consideration, or you need to apply and just indicate that you would like to be considered for them, things like the Presidential Scholars Award. But we also encourage you to apply to external scholarships as well. So these are organizations outside of UBC that may offer awards if you search things like engineering, STEM, tech, technology. Especially if you are a female identifying student, search for women in engineering, women in STEM, and there are lots of awards out there available to you. You'll probably need to apply and submit like a short application of some sort, a short essay, but you can probably use a very similar essay for many of those awards and hopefully get yourself quite a bit of scholarship money before coming to UBC. To wrap up, I want to mention a few additional resources to be aware of and how to stay connected with us before we get to all of those questions. I see lots of questions coming in. Just a reminder before we get to questions to make sure that you are upvoting any questions that you want answered. We are going to go in order of most upvoted questions. So upvote any of them and we will go to most upvoted first. You can just click that little thumbs up in the Q&A tab. All right, so a few ways to connect with us. We have a really great program, Chat with our UBC Engineering Ambassadors. These are current students doing amazing things in really cool stuff. So they are representing pretty much every program that we have at UBC, representing both campuses. They are involved in design teams. They have done things like co-op. They have, some of them will be Canadian students and some of them will be international students. So you can reach out to these students and start a chat with them online about any questions you have about the student experience, what their program's like, what it's like being on a design team, anything like that. They are happy to answer your questions. You can get in touch with them. They will not be able to answer anything about your application or admission, so please don't try and ask them that. But anything to do with UBC engineering, they, as a student experience, they will be happy to answer. Now, we have even more events coming up before the application deadline, so do check those out. On December 10th, we have a session where we're going to have a couple of alumni share a little bit more about what they're currently doing for work, how their degree got them to where they are now, and kind of just share a little bit about their student experience and the journey that they've been on so far. We also are going to have a session in January about life as a UBC engineering student. So just kind of like a student panel showcasing some of those ways to customize your degree that I mentioned. So students that have all these sort of different opportunities that they've taken advantage of. To register for those, you can register the same place that you registered for this event. And keep an eye out because if you do apply, we're going to have a lot more events coming up after January 15th for all of our applicants to UBC engineering. All right, so on the screen right now is the easiest way to get a hold of us. You can contact me at outreach@apsc.ubc.ca. You should already have that email because I've sent it to you in terms of reminding you to register for this, or reminding you to attend this event, but also the invite to register for this event. So you should have my email on there already, but you can always contact me by contacting outreach@apsc.ubc.ca, and I can help answer questions about the Vancouver or Okanagan campus. Or if you have very specific Okanagan campus questions, you can also reach out to engineering.okanagan@ubc.ca. All right, so I am done talking for right now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I am going to invite Sasha and Shige to turn on their cameras and to introduce themselves. So Sasha, I'll have you go first if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Great. Thanks, Erin. I'm Sasha. I'm a student recruiter advisor at UBC. I generally advise domestic students. Been doing this for a while. Got to do a session with Erin yesterday as well. So look forward to helping answer questions about applying to UBC.
And Shige.
Yes, yeah. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Shige. I am an associate international student recruiter advisor. And usually I travel outside of Canada, meet and assist international students who are interested in UBC. But this time, with all the technologies we have, I'm very excited to be here and connect with you. Get back to you.
Perfect. Thank you both for joining tonight to help me answer all of these amazing questions being submitted. So one more reminder before we jump into these questions. I see a ton of questions already, so we're going to try and get through as many questions as we can. But if you are upvoting questions, so clicking that thumbs up, we are going to go through roughly in order of most upvoted questions. We're going to try and get to as many as we can. But of course, if we don't get to them today, you can always send us an email and I'd be happy to respond to you in the next day or so. All right, this is a question we get all the time about what is the average admission grade required, and is that different for different engineering streams? So, two pieces here. In terms of the admission grade for entrance to UBC, you're applying to that first foundational year. It is competitive. The Vancouver campus is going to be a little bit of a higher average than the Okanagan campus because we do have a little bit more space available at the Okanagan campus, but it is competitive. And like I said, we're going to be looking at those three different pieces of your overall average, your core academic average, and your personal profile to assess for that. Now, that is different than second year placement that I mentioned today, which is where you're actually getting into those engineering disciplines. That is going to be based on your average of your first year of engineering. And so that is a little bit different. We do actually have a chart online that shows the general cutoff over the last 4 years for each of those engineering streams, but that's not what you're applying or directly into. You're applying into the degree, and then after your first year, you would be selecting from those engineering specializations. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. I know we don't have like specific averages because it totally depends on what curriculum you're completing and your personal profile and a whole bunch of different pieces. So it's not just straight grades, but obviously getting the best grades you can is always going to help you out. All right. Next question I'm going to ask for Sasha, I think. So can you talk a little bit more about, will taking AP courses in high school give any admission advantages? And maybe we can consider IB as part of that as well.
For sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I get this question a lot. So it's definitely a personal decision, right? AP and IB courses are not offered to everybody. Not everyone has the opportunity to take those courses. So they're certainly not required for people to take them. If they are available in your area and you do want to take them, I would really consider your goals, ensure that you're being challenged, but maybe that they're not really far beyond where you're at with whatever subject it is. UBC definitely considers both AP and IB courses to be rigorous courses. So that would be taken into account when we are evaluating your application. The other benefit of those courses is that you may be eligible for transfer credit if you do the AP exams or IB exams. If you get a certain grade, you might get transfer credit, which will help you towards completing your classes that are required for your degree at UBC. And we have a chart online if you want to see which courses, what grade you would need, and what course you would get from UBC for transfer credit. So yeah, if there's anything anyone else would like to add, feel free.
No. All right, perfect. I think that sums up all of that question, what we normally get. So it's definitely, yeah, something that you can take. I think it gives a lot of students the experience of like having those large exams and things like that you'll get in university. So it's definitely not a disadvantage by any means, but yeah, great explanation of kind of how we consider those. What is the number of students that we accept for first year engineering? We have about 1,000 students that we accept every year to the Vancouver campus, and we have about 420 or so students that we accept every year to the Okanagan campus. So you'll see each year level is going to have about that many students, and if you times that by 4 or so, that is the total number of students that we have at each campus in our programs. And then in the engineering specializations that you go into, that will range anywhere from maybe about 60 students up to 200 and some students per specialization per year. So that just depends. And so class sizes and then is affected by that. And I do just want to mention with class sizes that even though we accept 1,000 students, your largest class size is typically going to be maybe about 250 students or so for a large lecture. But with all of those large lectures, you're going to have smaller components of your classes that are going to be tutorials or labs or studios where you're going to actually get to be in a smaller setting of about 50 students or so, usually working on it in a team in those and having really close connections with the instructors in those labs or studios or tutorials so that you can really get some of that hands-on experience outside that large lecture hall. The next question, another engineering specific question. After studying the first year engineering program, if I realize the engineering major that I'm in is not suited to me, can I change it to other majors? So there's two pieces to this. If you start in an engineering specialization and decide that is not the one that you want to continue into, it is possible to transfer to another engineering program, but it will be based on space and it will be based on your grades in that second year of study. It also may be a little bit complicated of what actual transfer credit, because our curriculum is very, very specific. So, for example, the curriculum in civil engineering will not have much overlap with the curriculum in computer engineering, for example. So that can complicate it a little bit, but it is possible to do so, but it does have some limitations. What is really great about that foundational first year is that you really get to explore those different types of engineering. So you're making a really well-educated decision on which program it is that you're going to continue into. Now, if you start in engineering and decide that you want to transfer out of engineering to something else, that is also a possibility of something like arts or science, for example. A lot of your first year engineering courses are actually science credit courses. So that is something that's possible, but again, you would need to meet the admission requirements to that other faculty. So a few difference, you're not totally tied down to any one thing that you start in, but there are some additional considerations to make when you're changing whatever your program might be. Anything to add to that from either of you? No? Okay, perfect. All right. Next question, Sasha. So I'm going to direct this one to you again. Two-part question. So maybe we used to have an early or a first round offer date. That doesn't really exist in the same way anymore. But also, if you can talk about how we use grade 11 courses for admission as well, to address those two pieces, please.
Yeah, for sure. So in previous years, we had an early deadline of December 1st if you wanted to be considered for what we used to call a first round offer. So we have changed it this year. The December 1st deadline for domestic students is for scholarships. If you'd like to be considered for a scholarship, you need to submit your UBC application by December 1st. Anytime you apply before the final deadline, which is January 15th, we are going to take a look at your application with your available grades and your personal profile to see how you're doing. If we can offer you admission sooner than later, we will. Otherwise, most of our offers tend to go out in the March and April timeframe when we have more of your grade 12 grades. So how grade 11 grades fit into that is usually when you're applying between when the application opens, which was in October, until January 15th. Usually the grades that are available that you're submitting after you apply are your grade 11 final grades. So those are definitely the grades we look at first. If we're able to admit you based on those, awesome. You might get an offer sooner than later. Otherwise, we will wait for your updated grade 12 grades, which come out usually around March. And then most of our offers go out between March and April. So hopefully that makes sense.
Perfect. Shige, I'm going to ask you for kind of a second part. This other question is asking kind of about consideration of retaking courses. What would your recommendation to a student be when they're asking about, should I retake a course? Should I just continue in the rest of my courses to hopefully do better in those? What would your recommendation be?
Yeah, that's a great question. If students are considering to retake, and if they have a space to do that, that would be great. They could definitely, retake the courses and then submit their grades as well. So it depends on their situation as well, if they have space to do that. But if they are considering, and then if they have enough space, then definitely they can do that. Is there anything you'd like to add, Sasha, Erin?
I might just add that for domestic students, particularly if you're going to retake a course and you're in grade 12 now, the cutoff time for you to finish that retake course, if you want it to be part of your competitive average that we look at, would be before that kind of March 15th deadline, because after March 15th, we are going to have to start making decisions. So we won't be able to wait for the new grade to replace the old one after that. But if you are able to finish it before March 15th, then your new grade could be used instead of your old grade. So it kind of exactly what you said, Shige, just depends on how much time you have.
And I will add too that in some cases, if you are, if it is a grade 11 course that you're looking at, if you're taking that grade 12 course, there will be also consideration for the fact that that's a grade 12 course versus a grade 11 course. So sometimes taking the grade 12 course and doing really well in that in terms of timeline might be better for a student. So that's an option too. There's no one best fit, but lots of different considerations for sure. All right. Next question says, when applying, should I put Vancouver campus or Okanagan campus as my first choice? I prefer the Vancouver campus, but happy to attend Okanagan as well. Knowing how competitive it can be to be admitted to the Vancouver campus, is there any strategy for applying? Students always want to try and figure out the game of admissions, and it's actually much more straightforward than that. Sasha, maybe if you want to address that first choice, second choice piece, please.
For sure. Yeah, it's actually not that complicated. So I would say if you are most interested in the Vancouver campus, like you mentioned in your example, you should put that as your first choice. Your first choice is really meant to be your top choice, the one you prefer. If we can admit you to that choice, right away, awesome. Otherwise, we will still consider you for your second choice. It's possible that you can get an offer to your second choice and then also later get an offer to your first choice. So we are going to continue to consider you for your first choice, even if we've already offered you admission to your second choice until you get a final answer from us. So yeah, definitely just put your top choice as choice one, and then your other choice as choice two would be my recommendation.
Yeah, there's no game. It's just tell us what you want. Um, all right, Shige, the next question says, can you expand on the personal profile question that asks, what is important to you? What type of topic slash theme might admissions be looking for?
Right. Yeah, another great question. So basically, through personal profile, we would like to know who you are. So any activities you had outside your classroom, anything that's important to you that you engaged in, that's basically something you can write about. And I believe it's not something that related, it doesn't need to be something related to engineering. You can ask genuinely to yourself what's important to you. You don't need to worry about what other people want to hear from you. You can write about what's important to you. And we would like to know your reflection as well. So things basically learned from those activities. That's something you can write about for your personal profile. And the website you mentioned, Erin, u.ubc.ca, we have tips for writing a great personal profile. So I highly recommend checking that as well.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, and I think we have that in the resources tab as well. Let me just double check. If you go to, I'll flag this for everyone. So there's a what we look for that does, I don't have the specific link up here for the personal profile, but if you go to that page, it will link you to the personal profile details. So you can definitely check that out for any more explanation. But yeah, basically, again, we're not trying to trick you or anything like that. It's very straightforward. We just want to know what is important to you that has been important to you in your life. So uh, next question is, what are the top 3 most popular engineering majors and how many placements are available in this respective major? Ooh, that's a test off the top of my head. So we do have the most popular can change year to year, depends. Computer engineering was getting very popular over the last 5 years or so, and it is coming down a little bit now. I think electrical engineering is kind of coming up to meet computer engineering a little bit. So it depends year to year, but currently the most popular would be engineering physics, which accepts about 60 students each year. So it's actually one of our smaller programs. Mechanical engineering is very popular. And again, like I said, computer engineering has been popular, but that is coming down a little bit. Mechanical engineering accepts, I want to say off the top of my head, somewhere between like 150, around 150 students each year. And computer engineering, I don't know that number off the top of my head. I want to say like 80 students, but I could be wrong on that one. But what you can see online is if you look up program place or second year program placement, UBC, it does actually show you a chart that shows what that first year average has been. And basically, the ones with the highest average are the most popular engineering programs. And a reminder that this is only applicable to the Vancouver campus because at the Okanagan campus, you are guaranteed placement into any of those engineering disciplines. At the Okanagan campus, probably mechanical engineering is the most popular, but you are guaranteed placement into any of those. So hopefully that helps answer that piece. Another personal profile question. How much is the personal profile weighted? Sasha, I don't know if you have any more information regarding that you could help.
Yeah, for sure. So the personal profile and your grades don't have like a really clear weighting, like it's not 50-50 or 30-70. They're both very important. So without strong grades, your application is not going to be competitive. Without a strong personal profile, it also won't be competitive. You kind of need both. So what I always recommend to students is to treat your personal profile as though it's just as important as your grades, to make sure that it's your best work. Because if you have really strong grades and you have a strong personal profile, it's going to make your overall application stronger. So the thing that benefits you the most is just to treat it like it's very important. You can review those questions online. You can always email us if you are not sure about something, and to take your time with it, because, yeah, it is important, but there isn't like a specific percentage that it's weighted.
Thank you. The next question is, what percent of first-year engineering students get into mechanical engineering as their top choice? Not asking for the percent who get into one of their top three choices, but what percent get into mechanical engineering? So, I mean, I mentioned we have around 150 students that are accepted into mechanical engineering each year, and we have 1,000 students in first year. I can't do that percentage off the top of my head, but whatever that works out to. But again, I don't want you to get too caught up on how competitive any specific program is, because there are lots of opportunities for you to get into a program that will still lead you to the same degree or to the same career. So even within mechanical engineering, there are so many different fields that you can work in as a mechanical engineer, that you could also work, or you could also do other programs to get you into that same field. Or be working on a team of those same sort of people as well. So that's really what the first year allows you to explore a little bit more. Typically, the kind of fact that I'm able to share is that 90% of students are able to get into one of their top choices. And we say top choices because, again, a lot of the programs have some overlap, especially in the field that you might end up working in. And so you can still go into different programs to still be part of that same workforce, working on the same types of projects and things like that. So hopefully that answers a little bit. You're probably better at math than me anyways. I did not do engineering, but this is my job to support you, but I don't need to take the engineering classes. So I'll leave it to you to do that percentage. But hopefully that kind of answers. And I do see a few questions about, those specifics of placement. And I just want you to feel a little bit more comfortable that students are still getting into one of their top choices typically. Another question uh, about the GPA of students graduating from engineering. I'm going to say if you want to know that number, you're going to have to email me because I do not know the percentage of our students off the top of my head. If you want to send me an email, can you also tell me what number of credits someone would look at for law school too, at the law school you're looking to? Because that would be different of whether we're looking at the GPA of the most recent 60 credits of the entire degree, what that looks like. But I can tell you that for a lot of students, the GPA might be a little bit lower in first year, and that will continue to get better and better throughout their degree. So the last year is always going to be the highest for sure. But if you want to send me an email with a little bit more information, I'm happy to pull that data for you. I just don't know that off the top of my head. I think you touched on this a little bit already, Sasha, but just to maybe clarify, about the rolling admissions and when an applicant should expect to hear back, if you want to maybe just remind everyone of that.
For sure. So, what we're doing this year that's different than last year is something called first review. So, that means when you submit your application to UBC, we're going to take a look at it as soon as we can. We used to wait until after December 1st to look at all of the applications that came in. Instead of waiting, we're just looking at applications as soon as we can after they get in. We do get a lot of applications though, so it's not going to be instant. So you can expect to hear back from us. Most offers go out in March and April. That's still the case, especially for competitive programs like engineering. So that's a good expectation to have of when you'll get a decision from UBC would be in March or April. It is possible that you could hear back before then, but most people won't hear back until March or April. And if you do, yeah, I think people are getting concerned that rolling admissions means that we're giving out all of our admission offers early because people are applying earlier and that we're going to run out of space. And I just want to, let everyone know that's not the case. We only give out a smaller amount of offers, which is for very highly achieving students. That is kind of like early admission. Most people will hear back in March and April. So hopefully that helps.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Shige, a question about the SAT. So for students that may be completing the American curriculum or have written SAT or ACT, the student specifically asking about their score, but I'm going to say in general, when should a student submit their SAT or ACT score? Do they have to? What would your recommendation be for that?
Yes, yeah, I would say, so first of all, SAT, ACT scores, it's optional. So it's not required. So if you'd like to submit, you're welcome to do so, but it also depends on the scores, right? So I would say 1350 above is sort of like a average, I mean, at least 1350, then it would be sort of like a average scores. But if it's 1400, it's kind of competitive range, especially for those programs that are quite competitive, like engineering, business science. So it's up to you to decide whether you'd like to submit SAT, SATs. And even if you don't submit your SAT scores, your application won't be at disadvantaged.
Perfect. Thank you. Question about co-op. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we have the largest co-op program in Western Canada for engineering. And so with that co-op schedule, you're actually doing 16 months of paid work experience. So the question here is, can you do it during the summer instead of fall, winter? So co-op is going to add a year to your degree because you're doing 16 months of paid work experience. Now you get paid quite well. And so it can help finance your degree. I think I saw a couple other questions about co-op. So just to clarify, you can apply into co-op at the start of your second year. So you don't have to worry about that now if you're just applying to your first year. If you are a transfer student coming into your second year, keep an eye out for that information coming out in the beginning of September of your second year of school. And that's when you'll be able to apply. Getting into co-op is actually really easy. You need a minimum 65% average. And that's pretty much what they look at for the co-op program. We want our students to be able to participate in this. We have about half of our students who choose to do co-op. If you're not doing co-op, you still have your 4-month long summer. So you can still do work terms throughout the summer. You can do part-time jobs during the year, things like that. But if you want to do co-op where you're getting that really in-depth engineering experience, then that's a great program. Typically, your first work term would be the summer after second year. And then depending on the program that you're in, you may do some fall terms, some winter terms. You can do work terms that are up to 16 months in length. A lot of students will do a 4-month work term and then 2 8-month work terms. It just depends on what your schedule looks like and what you want to do. But it is flexible and you will have a co-op advisor to work very closely with to help make sure that you have the interview skills that you need, the resume skills, and to make sure that you are really supported throughout your co-op journey as well. So it's a really great program, but nothing that most of you will have to worry about just yet. Now, I do want to mention we have just over 10 minutes left today. So we are kind of running into the end of our questions. Do make sure that you're scrolling through and upvoting any of those questions. I will keep refreshing this to answer the most upvoted questions as we come to them. And so just make sure that you are upvoting them because if you're asking new questions right now, we may not get to them. But again, you can always send us an email and I would be happy to get back to you with any questions that are answered today. Sasha, I'm going to throw this question your way. I don't know if you can answer it, but a student says, my application says ready for evaluation on their applicant service center, I'm guessing. But someone who applied later than them says that theirs is under review and evaluation. What's going on?
Yeah, so first of all, don't worry, nothing is wrong. How things go with evaluating applications isn't quite as linear as people might think. Like, I sent mine in first, so they should be looking at it first. It depends on what you applied to. It depends on whether you have a second choice. And really, admissions is just working as quickly as they can in batches. So it's just a little bit complicated, I would say, but it's not something to worry about. There's nothing wrong. Having the applicant service center show you updates is really just so that you know things are moving along. It's not going to give you a lot of detail about why certain updates are happening. So I would say not something to worry about. You can just trust the process and know that we are getting to everyone's applications as soon as we can. If you do ever have a specific question about your application, or you are worried that something is missing or something might be wrong, you can email admissions. They have their own email, just admissions.inquiry@ubc.ca. I would say in this case, I wouldn't recommend emailing. It's nothing to worry about. But if there is a more of a concern that you missed something, you can email us and we'll help you out.
Perfect. Thank you. There's a few questions that are a little bit repeats of what we've seen already, so I'm going to skip through a little bit. There's one question about scholarships. So I did touch on some scholarships available, asking if there's engineering specific scholarships, and there are. There are engineering specific scholarships that are going to be automatically awarded to any student that has indicated that they would like to be considered for those main entrance scholarships at UBC. We do also have some specific awards for women entering engineering. We also have a separate application if you're an Indigenous student entering engineering. We have some specific Indigenous student awards for engineering for both entrance and as well as continuing students. For the Okanagan Shige, there's a couple of new awards for international students. Can you maybe touch on those a little bit?
Yes, yeah, sure. I'm happy to share our new scholarships that are specific to UBC Okanagan campus. So this is a merit-based scholarship, and we have two types of these new scholarships. First one is called UBC Okanagan International Welcome Award. This is 5,000 Canadian dollars, and this is for those students who choose UBC Okanagan campus as their first choice. And then once they've been admitted to their first choice program, then they will receive this amount. And the second one is UBC Okanagan Global Elevation Award. That is a renewable scholarship. So this is for those students who've been admitted to UBC Okanagan campus, and after they enroll into the degree program on UBC Okanagan campus, they will receive 8,000 Canadian dollars for up to 4 years. So if any of students here are interested in UBC Okanagan campus engineering program, this is a great scholarship for them.
Perfect. Thank you. And like I said, also, there's lots of external awards as well. So be sure to apply for those. There are external awards for both domestic and international scholarships. You just need to find them, which I know can be a little bit daunting. But there are awards out there for students specifically interested in engineering. So I would encourage you to search for those. Sasha, there's a question about how percentage grades are considered from other provinces, and whether they're increased or decreased for UBC. Is there anything that you can answer related to that?
Yeah, so as far as I know at the moment, the only consistent increase that we have given is for Alberta students. Their provincial curriculum is considered to be quite rigorous compared to the other provinces. So in the past, we have given a 4% boost to the averages of Alberta students. So that's the only province that I'm aware of that we do that for. So that's the only difference between the provinces. Yeah, if you have more questions about your specific situation or province, I would say definitely email us. But generally, Alberta is the only one that we make an adjustment for.
Perfect. Thank you. A question, I touched on this a little bit, but a question of, if I get into the Okanagan campus, can I transfer to Vancouver later? If you're in engineering, we do accept a few transfer students from the Okanagan campus to the Vancouver campus every year, but it is very competitive. And if you're really set on coming to the Vancouver campus and you're not admitted, we actually have what's called the engineering transfer program, and that might be a better route for you, where you're starting in one of our partner institutions, completing that first year, and as long as you complete the full first year curriculum and maintain a minimum of a 3.1 GPA in that first year, you will be guaranteed admission to our second year engineering program. And so if you are open to either the Vancouver or Okanagan campus in engineering, going to those, then totally you can start at the Okanagan campus and continue there. Again, transferring may be a little bit complicated. And there's only a few students that are that we accept that way, because obviously we can't just have everyone from Okanagan leave and come to Vancouver. But that engineering transfer program does allow students, again, admission to second year at the Okanagan campus or Vancouver campus. There's a little bit of a different requirements between the two campuses, but that would set you up for further success. There's about 13 different institutions in BC that you can basically do your whole first year engineering program now, and then come into either the Vancouver or Okanagan campus. So that may be an option to consider as well. If you're in the Vancouver area, there's a lot available like Langara, Capilano, Douglas, Kwantlen, so lots of different options, and that might be something to consider. Another question, is it possible for first or second year students to get involved in research? So it definitely is. I mentioned a little bit about this in the presentation, but there are tons of different ways for our students to get involved in research. One of the really awesome things about the Okanagan campus is that there are less master's programs there, less graduate degrees there. So a lot of the students working in the research labs with our engineering professors are all undergraduate students, and you can get involved as early as your first year. At the Vancouver campus, we obviously have a lot more graduate students here, so there may be a little less opportunity for undergraduate students to get involved in a research lab, but there's still other ways that you can get involved in research, like our undergraduate research organization, or URO. There's the multi-undergraduate research conference that happens every year as well for students to present their research. So there's tons of ways to get involved in research at either campus. I'm just scanning through to see if there's any other questions that really stand out to answer as our last two. There's some really great questions in here. There's a few questions about co-op, about companies that our students work for, companies that our graduates work for. And it's hard to answer those questions specifically because it's really so varied. But in our co-op presentation that we hosted, so if you go into the resources tab and look at past presentations, we do go into a little bit more detail about some of our partner companies, but any of like the top, we have Tesla come and do presentations for our students every year that they're trying to recruit students for both co-op and work. We have students that go work at Google and Apple and IBM. One of the students coming to the session coming up on December 10th works for IBM right now in Ontario. We have students that work for obviously all like the main tech companies, a lot of biomedical companies. Honestly, probably most major engineering companies in Canada have at least a few UBC engineering grads working there. But we also have students that work around the world. One of our alumni from a few years ago was actually working on the redesign of the FC Barcelona stadium. So she actually got to work of, they were trying to make the stadium more of part of the community. In Europe, obviously, things are a little bit more interconnected than you might see in North America. And so she was actually working on redesigning this huge multi-million, maybe multi-billion-dollar stadium for FC Barcelona. So that's just one opportunity. But yeah, there's a few questions about kind of what jobs are available, things like that. So lots and lots of information about that in our co-op session, but also on our website too. There's just honestly so many to list them all off. Sasha, maybe one last question for you. There's a few students asking a little bit about IB. When will I be considered if I'm submitting IB grades? Do I need to submit them individually? Will my IB coordinator do that? Any kind of piece of advice for those IB students, maybe?
Yes, for sure. So for IB students, if you're doing the full IB diploma, what we use to evaluate your grades is your IB predicted grades. So predicted grades are going to be submitted to us directly from your IB coordinator at your school in February. So you don't really have to do anything if you've already applied and you've selected that you are studying the IB curriculum, IB diploma curriculum. I think I even saw someone commented that the next step was that we would look at your predicted grades in February. So we actually contact the schools, find out who to get those from, and they send them directly to us. And the reason why we wait till February to get those IB predicted grades is they are predicted grades, right? So we need a good chunk of grade 12 for us to predict your final IB grades. That's why we can't really get them earlier than that. I will say IB students are not at a disadvantage, although it might seem like a long time to wait till February. Once we get those IB grades, our admissions folks look at them very quickly so that we can do a quick turnaround on those applications.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of other very specific questions in here about very specific scenarios for students. So for those ones, I am going to encourage you, send me an email. I'd be happy to either discuss with you over email or connect with you in some way to help make sure that you are getting your questions answered. Before we wrap up today, I'm going to ask Shige and Sasha to both give me kind of what your main piece of advice would be. So maybe Shige, if you have any specific advice for international students that are here today, of kind of, at this point in time, they maybe have applied or thinking of applying, what piece of advice would you have for them?
Right, yes, yeah. This time of the year, I know students considering applying or already applied, worried about which university to go, what kind of documents they need to prepare. So please do make sure to check, use our website. Lots of resources on it. So you can get all the details from our website. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. And university is a great place that you can get lots of experiences, especially at UBC. You can gain lots of active learning experiences, as Erin mentioned, like a co-op internship experience and like club activities as well. So you can always, I mean, at the same time, when you're thinking about university, you can also think about what kind of activities, learning experiences you'd like to have. And then you can think about which university fits the best as well. So I know this time of the year is probably one of the toughest time for you guys, but I wish you all the very best.
Perfect. And Sasha, any recommendations or words of advice from you?
I would just say to focus on the things you can control, which would be, doing your best in your classes, pay special attention to those classes that are related to the degree you're applying to. So for engineering, those science and math courses are really important. And then, make sure your personal profile is your best work. Check out the questions ahead of time. They are not a secret. They're listed on our website. And just take your time and make sure it's your best work and see what happens. And I wish you the best of luck. And we're here to support you with questions you might have in the future as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm just going to add in, there's a couple questions about what is our email. So I had it on the screen before, but I'm just going to add it in again. So it's outreach@apsc.ubc.ca. So you are welcome to send me an email and I will help make sure that you get your questions answered. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us this evening. I know you had a lot of amazing questions. We touched on so many different topics tonight. So thank you all for joining and asking your great questions. Again, if you didn't get them answered today, please reach out to me. And hopefully you enjoyed this session. We have 2 more sessions, like I mentioned, coming up. So definitely check out our upcoming events, especially if you want to get more connected with some of that student experience pieces. Those are what kind of the next 2 are going to be really focused on. But huge thank you to Sasha and to Shige for spending your evening with us. And thank you to all of you for spending your evening or morning or middle of the day, wherever you're joining us from. We really appreciate it and hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.